We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. By the time you hear this, it will be Wednesday. Recording it Tuesday night. We've got a recognizable face there, Jace from San Antonio, Texas. And we always have plenty of things to talk about when Jace comes in. And Jace, good to have you back and looking for a robust interchange and repartee.
Yeah, we were talking about earlier, Mike. There's not much really going on. I don't know if we're going to have to cut this podcast usually about an hour and a half. I'm going to have to cut it down to 45 minutes. There's not shit going on. Oh, wait.
Yeah, no shit. I was telling my wife that we were talking about it with all the shit going on and all the potential things. She said to me, uh, "What happens when if Donald Trump died today? What would happen?" And I go, "Take a look around." I said, "Honey, don't worry. Even if Donald Trump were to cack tomorrow, we still be in business because there's a lot of sorting out to do, and there's a lot of bad people out there that need to be addressed." And somebody needs to kick the shit out of some of these horrible Democrats that are out there too. So I'm 65 years old. I would like to retire by the time I'm 73, maybe, but we'll see.
Retire again from podcasting, maybe, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. What else am I going to do? I'm here. I'm doing whatever I'm doing. Let's talk about Texas real quick because you're in Texas. You got a few issues down there. We
Only
know James Tallarico is going to go up against um,
we don't
one
know
of
yet.
two Republicans, and things are getting a little weird down there compared to what they once were.
Yeah, I text you yesterday. I was reading some of the polls, and there's a new poll come out. I mean, I know we don't really believe polls, but this is really telling. Tallarico has been beating Paxton from the get-go in most of the polls, but he's never really beat Cornyn. Well, there came out yesterday that he's like 1 point up on Cornyn and 2 points up on Paxton. So that tells me A, that he's gotten a lot of independents and moderates, but he's also got some of the Jasmine Crockett crowd coming over too. I think people are realizing, like what you said, I'd rather have, Tallarico wasn't my first choice, but I'd rather have him in than a Paxton or a Cornyn. And there's another poll that came out today, and it was a Republican poll, and it said if Trump picks Paxton or endorses Paxton, or if Trump endorses Cornyn. Cornyn lost both. If he
Really?
endorses Paxton, Paxton wins by a big margin. If he endorses Cornyn, Paxton still wins by 1 or 2 points. So I think Cornyn's screwed because I think MAGA loves Paxton. There's been talk about, I saw people saying that, he's going to fire Pam Bondi and put Paxton as Attorney General. I've told you that before. I'm surprised he didn't get Paxton as Attorney General to begin with, because I mean, he's an eager beaver, so to speak. I mean, he's running for that Senate seat, but he's still being a pain in the ass with being Attorney General. He's suing
Yeah.
school districts. They're still worried about where people go to the bathroom. I mean, this is a guy that pretty much, wanted, abortion records from, different states in California and New York, told him to fuck himself. But he's still out there doing that. And I just think it's funny because Cornyn is still viewed, even though he's kissing Trump's ass and he's been there with Trump, he's still viewed by MAGA as anti-Trump. And that's what, and we're seeing Cornyn run these commercials about how Paxton's an adulterer. Have you looked at your boy Donald Trump lately? And also, I don't know if we talked about this, but my representative Tony Gonzalez dropped out. He
It,
dropped the race.
he obviously got some pressure from the Republicans because he wasn't going to do that at first. They told him something that made him change his mind. I don't know what that would have been, but here's an arrogant fuck that's got all kinds of problems himself. He should have dropped out on his own, chose not to do that, but now all of a sudden he is. What do you think happened as far as
I
what could
think
they
if
have told him?
I think if he would have won out with 50%, because they were headed for a runoff with the ATK guy Guerrera, who is now saying he's not a Nazi, even though he puts Nazi music on his website. Um, if he would have got 50%, the Republicans would have just ignored it. It's like, yeah, but he didn't win the primary, and he got less than the other guy. So that tells me that and he only won by 100 points when they had this back in 2024. So this has happened before. So he probably saw the writing on the wall that he's probably not going to win the primary. So the Democrats are, this is another thing that, they may get the Senate seat with Tallarico, but they also may get this seat. I'm hoping because there was a incident down here where Castro is one of the representatives, and they arrested a family out of McAllen, ICE did, and they locked them up, and it was like a big deal. Evidently, this family, they were legal, and there's been a lot of blowback. So you're having these Republicans down here acting like Democrats, saying, well, they came out against it. Of course, Castro was the one that got him released. But now the White House, I read too, they're telling Republicans will hold off on the deportation stuff. It's not very popular. You think when they lock up American citizens, but that's happening. And I guess it's out of McAllen. It's kind of made national news. I guess this family, I didn't quite get the whole story, but they played like one of somebody's inaugural or something, like, they were able to do that, but they were so hell bent on getting them that they were going to their meetings, I guess, for their immigration. That's what happened to a lot of them. They're going to their meeting and they're still getting deported.
Right.
So
Yeah. Let me ask
they
you about Gonzalez real quick. Now Gonzalez drops out. So where does that leave the primary election, or what's going on now? Who's going to be the candidate?
It's Guerrera. Um, he's I guess since they were the top two, I guess since he withdrew, he gets the Brandon Herrera. That's right. Brandon Herrera. He's the one that let's go Brandon. They were using it as a campaign. But this
Clever.
guy's an AT guy. He's only 30 years old, but he's very MAGA. But this is the guy that was online saying that, he sometimes feels suicidal, so he knows what it's like to be a soldier. I mean, he just said shit like that. He made fun of Barron, something with Trump. He has a long history to where the Republicans down here, they cut down Trump unless they need him.
Right.
And what he's doing now is he's coming out there and he's part of the Freedom Caucus, evidently, him and this other guy they're saying. So they're the ones that aren't your typical GOP. So it's something because Mike Johnson, the guy's been called a Nazi because people go, well, I'm not a Nazi. Well, your actions always speak louder than words. And
So he's a Republican nominee. Who's a Democratic nominee?
Padilla, her name is Padilla. I forget her last name, but she's Padilla Stout, I think, or Stout Padilla, one of the two. And she kind of came out of nowhere, but she's been raising a lot of money for this. So that's what's wrong with down here in Texas is that, you always hear about the Republicans, you never hear about the Democrats.
Right.
And, the DNC down here is just not very in everything. And they just at least recently just started having all the houses running for it. So you don't really hear too much about Democrats. It's mostly Republicans. It's Katie Padilla. She is for Congress.
Okay.
Padilla. Katie Padilla Stout for Congress. So she's an attorney, an educator, another teacher, and she's running for the 23rd congressional district. So she I've
Does
already
she have
got.
any kind of chance? I
I
mean, this
don't know.
guy's nuts. This guy,
Yeah,
this 30-year-old nutcase who's obviously kind of unhinged. He's bound to fuck up some point between now and November, say something stupid. Uh, maybe she does have a chance. Maybe we could get the Senate seat and this seat.
well, that's what I was saying. That if they get enough to where Republicans won't show up for this guy, maybe she can win. But, I sent you that thing about how more Democrats turned out for the election. And the girl, Gina Hinojosa, who's running against Greg Abbott, she got more votes than Greg Abbott did. Greg Abbott won his primary, but, nobody's really running against him. And there were like nine, I think, Democrats running. And she's the one that stood out and she's the one that got the most. But I guess with all the votes for Democrats, there was still more than what Abbott got. And, kind of with Abbott now too, they want to bring all these data centers and all these businesses as well. And I've mentioned this before, but this state's running out of water.
Yeah, you
And
mentioned that.
one of the cities, my hometown, Corpus Christi, which is on the Gulf, um, they're running out of water. And this has been going on for at least, 10 years they've known about this, but all of a sudden, Greg Abbott got on his high horse. Well, if they don't do something about this, well, I'm going to take over. And they do that down here. Like if a school's not, district isn't performing well, the state's going to take over. This is the
Do
government,
what?
this is the party that always said government shouldn't be involved unless they're in
Yeah,
charge.
right.
So evidently Abbott about 7 years ago knew this was happening. He's the governor, so like everything, he knows what's going on. But unless there's something bad going, he had no recollection, kind of like Mike Johnson and Trump.
Yeah.
But he wants to get out there and praise all the good stuff. But all this prosperity with these businesses moving here, yeah, the tax breaks are great, but they also want to build these data centers down here, and that's getting pushed back because they use so much energy and water. Well, they have all these refineries down in Corpus. It's by the Gulf, so they have these oil companies down here. And I was reading on what happens is that the customers, when this happens, they get their water. It's because it's Lake Corpus Christi is where the reservoir. It's like 10% full. And what they
Wow.
do is they cut the people's water down to 25%, but the Exxon and all those refineries down here, they don't touch theirs. So that water's still being used. So Abbott evidently went to Israel about 7 years ago to study the desalination, I guess, because it's
Desalinization.
to on the Gulf, and nothing was ever done. So I guess he just got a nice trip to Israel, when Bibi gave him a steak dinner, and nothing happened. Well, I was asking that question, why can't they do that? Well, evidently, when you use it for your crops, everything, of course, runs into the water, into the Gulf, which makes sense. And that would be, bad for fishing and, wildlife down there. So I don't know, man. I've told you that I want to leave Texas because it's running out of water, and we may see, I mean, they're saying it's coming soon. So they've had at least 10 years to take care of this somehow. But it's like they're signing this, they're getting all that money in, but they don't want to pay the upkeep. It's like conservation and, climate change. They want to damage it, but they don't want to upkeep it.
So what happens when you run out of water? That's kind of a death knell for any community.
Especially refineries and stuff down there where that's, the lifeblood of that city.
Right.
So I don't know. And it's kind of like a lot of stuff around here. We've never been here before. Like, all the stuff that's going on in Iran, they what really kind of freaked me out is they asked Mr. Global that about the oil stuff. And he said something like, I don't know because I can't tell you because we've never been here before. And
Right.
I think I've mentioned it to you, Mike. I'm getting kind of tired of living through historical events. I mean, we're gonna look back on this generation and stuff. It's like, God damn, they went through a lot of shit.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. You try to figure things out based on history. What happened last time? What did we do that time? What didn't we do? Or what should we have done? And it's impossible to do that now using a cliched word. It's all unprecedented times. So we're kind of winging it at this point, trying to figure out what the hell to do. But I got to think if you have a state as big as Tech Water, that poses a lot of fucking problems. You're going to have people moving out of there so fucking fast, it's ridiculous. And you got all those businesses down there that need water to run. You could have a complete economic collapse of Texas if people can't get water.
Well, that's been a big rumor that a lot of I mean, this was coming. The rent was coming due, so to speak. Like you're having all these parties, but you got to pay the caterer, and that's pretty much what's happening. They sign all this stuff, and while we're having, like what happened in, Kerrville last year is because they have all this concrete from all these businesses, but they don't have any, foliage or, trees to soak up that flood. That's why that happens.
Right.
And Texas has been going through a drought for a long time. And they're just you don't really have the leadership And, they can try to blame the Democrats, but the Democrats haven't been in power for 30 years. I mean, it's been since the mid 90s that this happened. They'll find some way to do it because they always got to get that, that Democratic boogeyman, and stuff. But what I'm seeing now is that you're kind of seeing the rise of, the Brandon Herrera, that freaking Freedom Caucus, right wing that, Laura Loomer's talked about, the Republicans having a Nazi problem.
Yeah.
It's what you're seeing the rise of it party, and honestly, Ken Paxton's part of that because Ken Paxton's the old guard, but he's still that, that thing that people don't like him, even if you're Republican. And I think what Paxton's done the best of is he's exposed Cornyn for being as weak as he is because Cornyn's coming out there. I mean, the worst thing you got on somebody that have adultery, what does Trump say? Hold my beer. I mean, it's
Yeah.
watch that. And now they go after Tallarico because he's too woke, and that his voice of religion isn't the, I guess, fire and brimstone Jesus that they like.
Right.
So it's like now it's like they're kind of stuck because you're going after a Christian while defending, somebody with like, Paxton's record. I mean, Paxton got he got impeached in the House, and what Paxton and Abbott did is they primaried all those Republicans that voted for him. They pretty much got rid of them. So what you have in Texas now is probably what you're kind of seeing in the national. You're kind of seeing national. You're seeing that more extreme Republican rise up that can that you look at Cornyn, he looks weak because he criticized Trump. But you look at Paxton and people just, whether you're Republican or Democrat, the guy's a crook.
Yeah. But they thought they had this thing game with Cornyn and Paxton. Donald Trump said that he was going to endorse somebody and that he would expect the other person to just quit the campaign. And presumably, when they were saying that, as much as he maybe likes Paxton better than Cornyn, they felt like Cornyn had a better chance that he was going to endorse Cornyn, and then Paxton would have to drop out. But then Paxton said, "Yeah, I ain't dropping out. Doesn't matter who you fucking endorse. I'm not. I'm not dropping out." So that puts a tough situation. Now, does he endorse Paxton and hope Cornyn drop out? Seemed kind of weird that an incumbent would drop out. So they're going to have this fight one way or another, and I don't know who wins. Uh, but I will tell you where Cornyn's problem is Cornyn has spoke out against Donald Trump on a few occasions. He's stuck with him on many occasions. But Donald Trump is a vindictive motherfucker. If you cross him one time, he's coming for you one way or another at any point in the future. He probably has a dislike for Cornyn at this point, and he's probably confused as to what to do. I go with Paxton, and he loses. I go with Cornyn, maybe he wins, but I don't like Cornyn. Uh, Donald Trump is. I'll bet you he maybe doesn't endorse anybody.
Could be. It's only a couple months away. It's in is it May or April? I forget. But I just want them to beat each other up, and I've been seeing a lot of that. I normally don't like Republican ads, but when they're attacking each other, it makes it, they did down here they try to out MAGA each other, well, Ken Paxton, Ken Paxton shined Donald Trump's shoes. Well, Jordan Cornyn spit on him to shine them. I mean, it's that ridiculous. I mean, it's like, and Trump may not do it because he loves the freaking adulation that he gets from both these
Yeah,
guys trying to suck up to be more MAGA.
yeah.
And
I mean, he loves them begging for his attention.
I think Cornyn is going to end up the loser because he doesn't look authentic. He's not he can't probably stand Donald Trump. He's that old school Republican that, he's more the lines of, a John McCain that, would work together. I mean, he's still an asshole. He's no John McCain, but he's that old school. He's that, when you look at somebody like Lindsey Graham is trying to get hip with all this MAGA stuff, all that people are like, what's happening to him? He's trying to do what the MAGA people does to stay in power. He's going crazy saying I'm in charge like that because that's what he sees the young people, younger ones like, Brandon Herrera. doing this shit. They're being crazy, and he thinks that's his way to survive. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I think there's more to it with Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham, he comes from a military thing, looks wonderful in a ball gown. Um, he, I don't think it's him trying to be MAGA. I mean, he's been doing what he's doing for a long time. I think there's something more insidious there. He talked against Donald Trump initially, and then he jumped on board, and that was bad enough. But now he seems kind of manic about it. He's coming off weird. He's coming off like he's drinking too much. He's coming off like he's a little crazed. His eyes are wild eyed. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. What I think is when you talk about Israel, and I'm talking about the government, not the country, when you talk about Bibi Netanyahu and this kind of stuff, they've been trying to get people from the United States to bomb Iran for 40 years, and they haven't been able to convince anybody until Donald Trump. So the question is why? We know that Jeffrey Epstein had some connections with Israel. It wouldn't at all be surprising if they had some of the Epstein files that might be very embarrassing to Donald Trump. But with Lindsey Graham behaving the way he is, he looks like a guy who's under pressure. And he's fervently with Israel. I'll stand with Israel till the day I die. Why would a U.S. senator say that? I think he's pretty nervous. I think there's some shit hanging over his head. And if it goes south, he's going to be exposed for a lot of things. And I'm not suggesting that he's going to be exposed as gay or maybe somebody who likes to dress up in frilly gowns. I'm thinking there may be something worse with Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump. He's been around for many years. There's some talk that he was involved with that same situation with Erica Kirk in Romania, that he was somehow involved with that. I think he's got some deeper, darker secret, even more than what we know. He just is behaving too erratic for for somebody who's been around this long. He doesn't jump on bandwagon to stay popular. He hasn't needed to do that, but he is in this case, and he looks like he's trying to fucking save his life.
Oh, so you think that they have some stuff on him that that's what a lot of people think that that's what happened with Trump is that they had shit on him that was too much. Well, there's been rumors that Iran has a lot of these files too, and we know there's more than one copy, as you say, for
Yeah,
them to do that. But, Trump's going around saying that, to him, it's almost over. And then like 5 minutes later, well, we're not gonna, like Hegsworth saying today is going to be the most, pound and ground. Tuesday was going to be the most, thing ever. And which, he's just like Trump because that story came out about him spending all that money on all the food and everything, like the millions of dollars on the, I guess, the lobster and the steak and all that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
It's like when, wag the dog when something comes out. And it could be with that. I mean, Lindsey Graham, I mean, you look at Lindsey Graham and he's obviously compromised because you look at Lindsey Graham from a few years ago, especially when like Joe Biden was running back in 2020, and you had that video of him coming out talking about how good of a man Joe Biden was.
Right.
You just obviously, he wasn't the same way when he was with John McCain. And a lot of
No,
people, John McCain would be ashamed of you right now. Yeah. So obviously, I mean, he could be drinking a lot. He could be wild like this because consider, I don't know if I would consider Ladybug a Christian. He doesn't seem
no.
like he's that crazy Mike Johnson rapture thing coming out. Especially if his lifestyle is true. So I don't see him as that. So you may be right. They may have some shit on him.
I want to get more to the war and to Epstein, but before we do that, I need to talk about another state that was going on today, Tuesday. It was the election that was going on in special election in Georgia in the 14th district. This was Marjorie Taylor Greene's district. She obviously quit. They had to run a race. There were like a million Republicans running, a few Democrats running. But the way it turned out was Sean Harris, who is a former brigadier general in the Marines, I think. Um, he was running for the Democrats, and the Trump endorsed guy was Clay Fuller, who was a Republican. They ended up being the top two vote getters. Now, neither one of them got 50%, so they have to have a runoff in early April. But it was really interesting to see how this turned out. Marjorie Taylor Greene had no Democrats running against her at different points when she's in that position. But you were telling me before the end of this election, I didn't get to see it, but you were saying that the Democrat got 41% of the vote and uh, the Republican Fuller got like 38% or something like
No,
that. Is that right?
I was wrong. I was reading the number of votes. Harris got 43,000. Clayton got 40,000. So Harris had about 37% and Clayton had 34%.
Okay,
So,
but still, the Democrat won. Here's another interesting point about this race that I think tells us a lot too, was the fundraising. Now, remember, this is a heavily red state.
oh,
Democrats often didn't even run in this district. Um, Harris raised $4.3 million for his candidacy. Okay, Fuller raised $750,000.
that's
That's
it.
quite a discrepancy in a very red district as far as maybe the Harris is getting outside Democratic help just to try to win this thing, to try to pour the steam on it. But this might be a situation where we could see a Democrat win a seat that no one would have expected.
It's funny. When I think you had when Old Soul said it that you notice how Democrats, when they lose, so to speak, they don't run. They go back and run like Jasmine Crockett. She was, getting primaried out of her seat, or not primaried, but her seat getting eliminated or whatever. She ran for senator.
Yeah,
But Marjorie Taylor Greene, she probably sees it writing on the wall, knowing that, that MAGA wave that they rode ain't going to be no more. So what does she do? She quits. So that was a good point. But Georgia, it's really weird about them. They don't really, I mean, when Texas you have of course a Democrat and a Republican primary. If I'm understanding right, Georgia, you just have a bunch of candidates, Democrat, Republican, Independent, and the
right,
top two. If nobody gets 50%, the top two candidates have to do a primary.
right,
So that's got to be a little concerning to Republicans, knowing that they had, Republicans out there running, and the guy that Trump endorsed came in second,
yeah,
because that's not good news for Georgia if they're having to go to a runoff in a primary to see, But how does that work? It's a special election, so the winner of this gets the seat until November, right?
right, right. It's just a short term thing. Now, one thing we have to consider, there was like 10 or 12 Republicans running. So he lost by 3 or 4% in the race with Harris. But now that there's only two, do all those other 10 people and all the votes from the other 10 people now go to Fuller, the Republican, and that might put him over the top? I don't know. I'm not sure how that will work. Um, Maybe they just won't vote because it's not the guy they want. I know it's just going to be interesting. The thing that's telling about this is how the Democrats showed up. I mean, I don't think most people think Democrats going to win this district. I mean, it's that red, but a lot will be considered when we see how many votes the Democrat gets, how much they fundraised. Um, uh, it's saying a lot about the Republican Party when we've actually got a race going on in the 14th district of Georgia.
Well, who was the Warnock election when he actually went against Herschel Walker a few years ago?
Yeah,
That's right. Okay. You see my shirt, and you know I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan.
yeah,
I donated to Warnock's campaign because you can do that. They haven't outlawed that yet, because I knew that Herschel Walker was such a, something that couldn't happen. I went against one of the all-time, well, he wasn't really a great cowboy, but he was a cowboy. So Georgia, there's something going on in Georgia to where, the Warnock, it wasn't a fluke. And this isn't a fluke. Maybe that's something
No.
that we give old Marjorie Taylor Greene a little bit of credit because she saw this coming. She
Yeah.
saw how, because, and, haters you must, but, she says it. She's going after Trump and being one of the biggest, do I trust her? No. But it's good to have those voices out there because she can actually influence this thing to where if their representative who they voted for to elect is saying this about this administration, that can only help the Democrats. Now, are
Yeah.
they going to, they crucified Kamala because she was there with, Liz Cheney, but if she would have lost, they would have bitched about her. Wow, she should have reached out. I mean, you can't fucking win.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what they need to do now is maybe not much embrace Marjorie Taylor Greene, but amplify what she's saying. Don't get in bed with them, but let them destroy each other. And I think a lot of Democrats are doing that, and I think that's why they're winning these elections.
Yeah. Marjorie Taylor Greene, everybody says, well, she must be nice now because she's doing this. No, she's not. Put it this way, I'll take all the help she can give us. But if I was single, wouldn't fucking date her. No way. She's a fucking weirdo. She's stupid and she's vile. And she's still vile even if she's helping.
I was watching Real Time with Bill Maher. Yes, I do sometimes. And every once in a while, he's right about stuff, but he had her on there and along with Joe Scarborough. And we all know how Scarborough kissed the ring, but I mean, Joe Scarborough's got more sense, but she doesn't believe in vaccinations. I mean, she was
Yeah.
there saying, well, I mean, she still got that, bit of dumbness to her because, it's like, but, it's like during COVID, I mean, people still think because Joe Biden, wanted you to wear a mask, that he was so bad and, Fauci and whatever. There's this thing to where these people don't believe science. They believe in a book that tells you there's talking snakes and virgin births and that the earth is 6,000 years old. So, I mean, no offense against, I'm not cutting down the Bible, but there's that part of Christianity where they pick and choose what they want to.
Right.
Yeah, homosexuality is a sin, but so's eating shellfish and having paid interest on a loan. They don't talk about that. They're all about the loans and the shellfish.
Yeah.
So you don't give me that. The Bible also says to give to Caesar what is Caesar. And it also says that you're supposed to kind of respect government too. I guess they don't follow that either. Give to Caesar what is his. Like you're under God's thing automatically, but you're still under, when you're down here, you're under their rule. There's some kind of verse there, but of course they choose to ignore that one.
I consider myself a Christian and I look at the Bible and I question some things in the Bibles. Granted, there's very good messages in the Bible. Unfortunately, those are the things that some people don't follow. But much like organized religion, we have to understand that this parts of this Bible anyway were written by men primarily, and same with organized religion in churches. These are mere mortals that are writing it or running the churches, and they have agendas and they have failures and they are flawed. And it's hard for me to take everything at face value when I know that there are people dumber than me. Things are writing the whole Bible, but there are a lot of contradictions in there. Um, Common sense is more valuable than the Bible. I've said this a million times. The best advice I'd ever heard from uh, a holy man, so to speak, was the Dalai Lama. He said, "All you had to know is be kind to your neighbor. That's all it is." And frankly, if you follow that, that would cover all 10 commandments and most other things. It's when they want to make it more complicated and more problematic so that they can control certain things. And as you may have noticed, my mom, my grandparents, my teachers, my bosses, my wife have all struggled with trying to control me. And to a certain extent, they can. But if I don't want to be controlled, I ain't going to be controlled. So I have problems with any kind of club, whether it be the Democratic Party or church or whatever. And I think more people need to just take account of what's going on and make the best choices, the things you think are the right choices, instead of having somebody tell you how to think. We know what's good and we know what's bad.
Well, I
And
think
maybe
what
we just choose to do the good things and not the bad things.
well, what's scary now is that you have the people that are running this country, or not Trump. I don't think Trump gives a fuck about the Bible. You know,
No,
he doesn't hold it upside down, with him. But you have a group like the Ted Cruzes that, Hegsworth, that, they think that, we're ushering in the Revelation, the book of Revelation. Well, the book of Revelation wasn't something that should have been in the Bible. There was like one, I guess, one Catholic father or priest that, put them in there, but a lot of it they don't think it was quote unquote official canon, I guess is what you say, like official. There's a lot of problems with it, and that a lot of the stuff is not so much the future, but the past.
yeah,
You have a lot of them that are interpreting the Bible that way, but they want to force it on everybody else. And I think you have a lot of Republicans that aren't necessarily Christians that don't like that. Like down here, they have the thing with the school vouchers, and a lot of that is because of private schools they want to do. Well, they did a study and they passed vouchers this year, but 74% of the people applying for the voucher money are already in private schools. So what does that tell you? You know what I
right,
mean? Like it's just, they're trying to get away from secular because it doesn't represent their Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, their Lord and Savior. Not my Lord and Savior, not, Joe Bob down the thing, or and it's like, what you're doing now is that you're in Iran and you're fighting against the people that aren't afraid to die. They're
right,
not,
exactly.
you put troops on the ground, you could have one guy that's bombs striped up there and he can run into that group of soldiers and wipe them out. These people don't care because they think that they're going to die. They're going to see Allah. They're going to get this stuff because that's what I mean, that's why you have little kids that bomb stuff because they believe in this. With us, it's like, yeah, I believe in God. It's not ingrained in a lot of us like it is them. It's their way of life. You get Hexwood up there and you get him separated from the booze a little bit, he'll probably, he'll probably start, denying Jesus like Judas did
Yeah,
because it's more of a way of life and an attitude. It's like MAGA. There's no substance to a lot of it. It's just attitude and swagger, like I'm the biggest dick there is. And what Tallarico freaks people out is because he talks about a Jesus, and to them it's woke, that talks about the poor, that talks about, hanging out with the prostitutes and the less fortunate, the lepers and stuff. This is not what, the Republicans want to do. And that really scares the Republicans because it's not their brand of Christianity, but it's something that, somebody like me, the avowed Satanist that I am, haha, kidding, that, will vote for somebody like Tallarico. It's like, well, that guy's not really a Christian, but he'll vote for a Christian. Yeah. And I think that's what you need to get away from because that needs to be separated. And when you look at Iran and you look at kind of like what they're doing and how they took over, it's religious. That's what they want to do here, but just a different way of that religious. They would love to have that same kind of thing here because you got these organizations that want that. They of course, because we're Americans, we're different, but it's Christian and it's, Christian nationalists, that's what they want. And they would love to but they could have like Iran to where we have to worship one God and under fear. They would love to have that. It's just a different name on a different continent.
right. Well, that's the interesting thing about this war in Iran. You can look at it for a lot of reasons, nuclear weapons and all this stuff. But when it really comes down to it, it's it's a war of three religions: Christian nationals, Jews, and Muslims.
Nope.
And the Christian nationals and the Jews do not like the Muslims. And that's what this fight is all about. This is why there's always, any of the turmoil in the Middle East has always been based in religion, first and foremost. You don't believe like I believe, I'm going to try to impose it on you. And if you don't accept it, then I'm going to kill you. That's essentially, and we got sucked into that same mentality. We've never been into that mentality before about, we're Christians, so you better change to be a Christian or else. We've never done that before, but now we are because Christian nationals are in charge. I think Donald Trump made a miscalculation. I think he makes miscalculations every day. I think when he went into Iran, he was being leveraged by Bibi Netanyahu. I think he went in there believing his own fucking bullshit, delusions of grandeur, where he thought he could go in. I'm the most powerful country in the world. I'm the most powerful man. I'm going to bomb the shit out of them for 3 days and then it'll be over and I'll be a hero and I will have vanquished this whole terrorist organization. Because make no mistake, people come to me and say, well, why are you supporting Iran? I'm not supporting Iran. I just don't want our people to die for bullshit for no reason. So he goes in there, it doesn't work. So what's he doing? Now, oil prices are going up, Americans are dying. Um, so he starts getting nervous. Stock market goes to shit. So he immediately does what Taco always does. He always chickens out. So he says, well, I think we got it pretty well in hand. I think we're going to probably wrap it up this week. And then it comes out that Iran's not going to surrender, big surprise, and that they are going to mine the Strait of Hormuz, which apparently they've done, or at least we're in the process of doing. Donald Trump gets mad. He just told us the war is pretty much over. We destroyed everything. And now he finds out we didn't destroy everything. Now he's saying we're going to hit him 20 times as hard. And Hegseth comes out and says, we're going to be relentless on this thing. So no one really understands what to believe. Everybody's excited. Stock market adjust a little bit because Donald Trump says we're getting out. And as so often the case, said, nah, I'm not going to do that. That's why nobody can negotiate with him because he changes his mind every other fucking day.
Yeah, why would you get in bed with somebody that, has a venereal disease, so to speak? I mean, it's like they're infected, so why would you try to fuck them? You know what I mean? Before they fuck you. Um, it's just it's that whole thing that, these rednecks and these mouth-breathing Trumplafucks want to think that they're better than the Muslims, but the Muslims are smart enough not to believe his bullshit.
Right. Right.
You can argue the election was stolen or whatever. The fucking thing is, it's not going to go back to Kamala even if they found it was stolen.
No.
Trump elected, and me and you agree that the Democrats didn't show up, and that's why it did. So not only the people that voted for Trump, or this is on them, it's the people that didn't show up to vote anyway. And I'm not talking if you couldn't make it because you're and you're handicapped or something. The people that actually chose not to show up because they didn't want to vote for Kamala, because they, even as a Democrat and they're called woke, couldn't vote for a woman of color. And that's what a lot of it bows down to. I mean, you have this, Trump. I mean, when Biden ran, he wasn't the perfect candidate for a lot of people. I didn't vote for him in the primary down here when he ran, but I eventually voted for him. So because, he was a white male
Yeah.
and I thought he did a great job, and obviously, even people were saying that this is Trump's doing. But the thing with Trump is that Trump is like that guy at the bar that hits on like 10 women. He'll get like one number right
Yeah.
from the chick in the bar. Well, that one chick was Venezuela. That was easy. Go in there and do that. Well, motherfucker, we can go in Venezuela, see how quick they gave up. They even gave me the Nobel Peace Prize. Iran's a different thing entirely.
Oh
Iran is
yeah.
a sophisticated chick with a brain that wants nothing to do with that. And what's happening now is there's rumors Netanyahu, his brother was killed. They confirmed that, but there's reports coming out. I think Iran has said this that Bibi is either hurt or dead because nobody's seen him. And you have all these people saying, well, he, escaped to, Germany or whatever. But why? I mean, I haven't seen anything about it. I've just seen reports, but I mean, there's always rumors about this stuff. So if Bibi is hurt or incapacitated, that's really going to screw over America. And that's really going to, because we're not going to have a key ally, because I don't know if a lot of, people in Bibi's quote unquote underlings want this as bad as he did.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's kind of like Donald Trump in the sense that if Donald Trump were to die tomorrow, I think you would see Republicans cooling off quite a bit. They don't want to be doing half of this stuff, and they certainly wouldn't continue the stupid shit that Donald Trump is doing. They try to settle it down. And the same could be said for Bibi Netanyahu. Now, if he was killed in this whole thing, okay, it's Tuesday. I don't really care because I think of him as a bad person. He's obviously a war criminal. And if he dies in a war that he fucking started, que sera or fucking ra. I hope that's the case. And people say, well, it's not it's not nice it's not Christian to wish the death of somebody else. But what if that somebody else committed genocide and kills women and children by the tens of thousands? No, I think him dying would be a plus. And I think the same thing for Donald Trump.
Well, I mean, they commit this genocide, and you wonder how a lot of people can still support, what's going on with this. And then you see these representatives. I think one of them was out of Texas saying that Muslims are pretty much not human.
Yeah,
I've I've had people who claim to be Christian, God-fearing Christian, tell me it's all Muslim. So you're just putting a whole thing on a whole race, a whole group of people. I mean, didn't your Jesus tell you to love thy brother? You know what I mean? I mean, the brother, just because you have different ways of doing stuff, and these are the same people that get mad at, well, I don't know why you hate me because I voted for Trump. I mean, these are the same people that want to put, I mean, Trump pretty much said that when he took over. I mean, didn't he have a Muslim ban when he first, one of his executive orders, take a Muslim ban?
absolutely.
It's like,
Absolutely. And
that's the,
and, and it's not limited just Israel or Israel hating Muslims or looking at them as subhuman. Christian nationals, evangelicals, white supremacists, they look at people of color in this country as subhuman. They literally do.
oh, I
And anybody that can get on board with that is just as bad as they are. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's how they do business. They create fear. Oh, those brown people, they're bad. We got to be afraid of them. So let's deport them or let's kick them out of the country or let's kill them. I mean, that's the attitude. And it's an attitude that you'll see all over the world at this point. People have been going through this racist bullshit for the millennia.
and I think that's why people are optimistic about Tallarico in Texas because he got a lot of the vote, the Hispanic vote, because all the gains that Trump made in 2024, he's lost.
Yeah,
So, and that's a lot of them too that are, you have a lot of Hispanic Republicans that aren't running as pretty much, they're kind of, they're okay. They want your vote, but they don't want to give you the rights. It's 2026 and we're still looking at skin color as a fucking, as a fucking problem. Mike, I may hate you because you got more hair than I do. I mean, we're always going to have something. Skin
yeah,
color is something that's not your fucking problem. And when you say something about, well, that's a Muslim thing, that's as bad. That's just a racist way of doing stuff. But for somehow, in a lot of these Christian nationalists, it's accepted because I grew up in these Christian nationalists, and they talked about, they talked about, it's like, did you know that Jesus was Jewish? He's
yeah.
just not a Muslim, but he's from that area. Oh no, they're different because they're people, son of God. And what they're going after Tucker Carlson now, I guess, is because he's kind of gone after Israel and people like Ted Cruz, who pretty much, probably doesn't give a shit about Israel, but his little, his sermon tells them that they're the children of God and you got to serve them. And it's like we both said, it's not like, the people of Israel are bad, it's their leadership. It's kind of like America.
It's
They're
exactly like in America.
fucking shirts and they'll fucking tell you. And I don't know who was it one of your guests talking about that, how they were somewhere and asked them who they voted for and they said Trump. I don't know, maybe it was on TikTok. Well, the girl was like, no, it was in Ireland. It was some girl telling a thing and they
Yeah,
were vacationing and they asked her who she voted for and she didn't want to answer the question. Well, that tells you right there who she voted for.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
And and I've been called a lot of stuff, and it's funny when I voted when I voted earlier in my life and I was a certain way, I wasn't hardcore that way because I think I've always been more social liberal than anything. And I just, I believed in a lot of the, so-called Reaganomics and all that stuff because, I wanted to be rich and stuff. Well, shit, don't, the only thing that rolls downhill is shit. It ain't fucking money.
Right.
So I got called a lot of stuff. Well, you're liberal or whatever. And it's like, I look at that now, and back then I just kind of laughed at it, but now it's kind of like, well, I take that as a badge of honor because I wasn't stupid enough to drink the Kool-Aid. And I think, being raised religious and stuff like that, there's just a lot of shit that I was taught that I couldn't believe. And I just, and I didn't really express that out loud because I was smart enough not to get my ass in trouble. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I prayed and bowed my head because, they were looking for people that didn't do it because I was smart enough to survive. It's kind of like playing dead. When you're like in enemy lines, you play dead to survive. And that's what I did.
So Donald Trump is in trouble now. He's caught between a rock and a hard place. He went in there thinking he was going to be the big hero, and now things are going to shit. And he wants to walk away, but then something else happens and says, "No, we're going to fight harder." Because that's the only thing Donald Trump knows. He's a bully. So if he tells you, "I'm going to punch you in the mouth," and if that doesn't stop you, then he says, "Well, I'm going to crack your head open, or I'm going to cut your throat, or something." He just ramps it up every time. And the Iranians or Muslim people are the wrong fucking people to do that to. You're not going to scare them. When you tell them, don't mine the Strait of Hormuz, they'll be out there this afternoon. They probably were going to do it anyway. What bothers Donald Trump is that these are people that don't cotton to bullies. They don't care. Their reward is if they die for the benefit of their country or their God. So they're the worst people in the world to fight against because Donald Trump's normal strategies, his normal tricks, don't work on these people. And so Donald Trump may want to pull out, but like you say, if he pulls out, then Iran is going to keep bombing the piss out of Israel. Where I don't think we're hearing all the information about how much damage is going on in Iran or Israel. And from what I've seen and the reports I've heard, Israel has gotten hit pretty fucking hard. So the other question is, does Israel then get, if Bibi's dead or out of commission? Does somebody else come in there and get freaked out because Iran may be kicking their ass, and then go to the nuclear weapon thing? Do they do that? It's
Well,
conceivable. That's the scary thing. I mean, we're worried about Iran getting the nuclear weapons. But the reports are that Israel said, you better help us with Iran or we're going to use a nuclear weapon. Who should we be more concerned about? Somebody who doesn't even have a nuclear weapon or somebody that does have a nuclear weapon and is threatening to use it? That makes Israel problematic to me.
yeah, definitely. And you talk about, hell, what's to say that Trump won't use a nuclear weapon? This is the same guy that wanted to drop one on a fucking hurricane. But
Yeah,
what Trump is running into is that he's always been able to bully his way out of shit. He did that, he did that with like he had a history of not paying his contractors, not paying, chefs, not paying that.
right,
So what the Republicans do is they go after the weakest among them that they can't fight back. And they know that.
right, right,
All this shit going on with Bill and Hillary Clinton, what is the House? They back down, when they do that. But what are they doing now? We heard that they want to investigate and go after Cassidy Hutchins for supposedly lying under oath. Who is Cassidy Hutchins? She's a woman that's probably not rich, doesn't have a lot of money, that was brave coming forward and saying stuff. So that's who they target. They go after her. And I hope the Democrats fucking, stall it to where, if she just holds off a little bit and if she works till November, she won't have to worry about that. But that's what the Republicans do. And Trump's always had a history of that, and he's never been held accountable. Well, what sucks for the rest of us is that he's going to be held accountable on this because they had a list of demands, I guess, and like I said, everything is, you don't know if this is true or not, but one of the lists that they wanted Bibi to be turned over to, I guess, the international, what that international, I guess, what he has those warrants under.
The Hague, yeah,
Yeah.
ICC.
I mean, yeah. I mean, is that something that, Trump, I mean, well, we know Trump will sell somebody out for that. But you're also, what is Bibi and his group, if there are people that want to continue if he is dead, what are they going to do? Hold on, Trump, because this is a guy, and I've said it before, Trump is very good at running for candidate and running for president, but when it comes to nut cutting time, making the hard decisions, that's like the Afghanistan thing. Biden never really recovered from that. But what was he doing? He was correcting Trump's mess and Bush's mess to go in there.
Right.
It's something he had the balls to do and he didn't do it. Well, I can tell you right now that, getting out of Afghanistan ain't looked about as half as bad as going into Iran. And
No.
we never learned our lesson by watching the Russians go into Afghanistan.
Right.
You win. And these people are willing to die for it. And unlike, Republicans, I do call them people because they are people, even though, I mean, if it makes them feel better, and I think a lot of them try to sleep at night with themselves with this genocide going on because they don't look at them as people. That's the way I
Exactly.
look at it. They're not people. And there was, it's does that sound familiar? What, we went through in this country with, owning slaves? I mean,
Yeah.
it's yeah, if you can, you can tell yourself that they're not a person, it makes you feel better. But I'll tell you right now, I don't like it when they just when they just call somebody less of a human being. I mean, it's like if that makes you feel better, then you're the person that's not human.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I look at Republicans discounting different races, different religions, different economic levels, it is disturbing. Um, I wouldn't suggest that Trump-fucks are any less a human than anybody else in terms of human terms. They are a lot dumber. They're the dumbest of the humans. If you have a species where you have intelligence here and here, they're down here. But they're still humans, and we have to consider that. People are saying, well, we've got to welcome them in because there's more and more of these people giving up on the Republican Party. They're looking at the gas prices, they're losing their jobs, and they're saying, yeah, I made the wrong choice. I I don't want them to. I mean, I don't want to exterminate them,
No.
but as a normal person looking at another person, I can choose not to interact with them. I can choose not to um, talk with them. And it's simply because I don't trust them. If you made that stupid choice and then you saw all the facts and you stuck with it all the way, how am I going to trust you? You may be just as much as a human as I am, but in this world, there's some people you like and some people you don't like. And the people you don't like, you don't fucking go near them. And that's pretty much what I would do with Republicans at this point. I would like to get them out of office, fair and square, with fair elections. And then, it's kind of like with my dad. I hadn't seen my dad for 25 years before he died, and I didn't get along with my dad. And people would come up to me and say, well, it's not good to be mad at your dad. When he dies, you'll be sorry for it. And I said, I got past the point of where I was mad at my dad. It was just he was inconsequential. He wasn't part of my life as I knew it now. He was part of my past. And I'm a firm believer in leaving the past in the past and worry about today. And today, I have a wife and kids and grandkids and a family of my own. That's my focus. What happened to me when I was a young boy, I had a great mom, bad dad, but it's all old business. We can't live in the past. We can't let that affect us now. We've got to focus on today so tomorrow is better. And with these people, these Republicans, I'm not going to go after Republicans per se for revenge like Donald Trump would do. Now, if they crop up and they start running for things and start talking some shit, I'm going to say, Didn't you follow Donald Trump? Didn't you support Donald Trump? We'll expose them for who they are. But as far as I'm concerned, Trump-fucks at this point aren't any value to me or this country. So to me, they're inconsequential. They don't exist in my world because I don't need them to exist. They don't benefit me or this country in any way. So instead of wasting the energy and the time of hating them, just disregard them. They're inconsequential. They don't matter anymore. And frankly, that will hurt them more than anything you could possibly do because they want the fight. If you don't give them anything, then they struggle.
And when I say not human, what I meant was when you see a fellow human being like the genocide going on, women and children, and you don't feel anything, that's not human. You just can't, because humans are social creatures, and if you can't feel any sorry for that, you have no conscience. That's not a human. Not being able to feel for your fellow human being, that's not a that's something to me is just, I mean, it's just something that, is wrong with you. You know what I mean? It's just like, and you're going to have a lot of these people that voted for Trump. They're going to like deny him, and
Oh, of course.
you're going to wonder how he ever fucking won election with none of these, because nobody ever voted for him that you fucking know. It's like, well, I know.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was your, did
Yeah.
you have that Trump flag out there in your lawn? Oh man, that was me. That was my uncle, something like that. But I'm with you on that you know, you got to let stuff go, because my dad was like that too. My dad with me drove it so far away to where I didn't hate him. I just didn't feel anything for him.
Right. Exactly.
And I think that's almost, more, because I think when you hate somebody, they're in your mind and you never let them go. So they're winning. And that's
Yeah.
like, like you talk about Trump having all these, like, vendettas and stuff like that. And he hasn't forgot Cornyn. He hasn't forgot, Lindsey Graham. I mean, he still remembers that shit,
Oh,
and
yeah.
remembers that stuff. And but and all these people do it. And Lindsey Graham said it best, is like, if we elect him, it's going to destroy this party. And
He was right.
what I don't get, and I don't really trust a lot of the Republicans like a Joe Scarborough, because they want to reform the party. The party needs to burn. It needs to, like, they need to, like, up from the ashes, come with something else. And I think that's going to happen, but I think what you're going to see from the Republicans is you're going to see that right wing stuff, to where it's almost, a white nationalist thing,
Yeah,
because
but it's
you're
not
going
going to
to,
work because
oh, I agree.
not only are we seeing a situation where people are being exposed for the bad things they're doing, we're also in a transition point where more young people are going to be voting for president in 2028. The attitude of the country, the perspective of the country is going to be dramatically different than it was in 20 and even 2024. 2028 comes along. We've got all these millennials and Gen Zs who feel like they're getting screwed by this country, mainly because they are getting screwed by this country. It's going to set a different tone, a different perspective. And I think the Republicans understand that they can go on and be white nationalists and they can do whatever they want. Republican Party is fucking done as you see them now. They're done.
But I also think you have the turning points problem too, to where that's why they're trying to put those in school and stuff, because the Republican sees what's happening. But I
Yeah.
don't think it's going to work, because I think there's too much, like when I was growing up, there was no internet. I was only allowed to read certain books, but now there's more, and that's probably one of the things that, this country, the nationalists do, is that they like not having the internet. I mean, they're already
Yeah.
doing it down here in Texas, with they tell you that, they want to do the thing with the porn where you can't have it. And that's just a testing ground. They want to be able to tell you what you can and can't watch. If you decide to watch porn and you're an adult and it's consenting, you should be able to do it. You know, and it's like, well, the kid's gonna get a hold of it. Kids are always gonna get a hold of that shit. I got a hold of Playboys when I was a kid. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I mean, it's always gonna happen. But it's when I see that, because that was Paxton's deal about doing that. I mean, it's, you're pretty much telling adults they can't do stuff. And every little thing they do, they see what they can get away with more and more. But I think that's, I think that, they have a real problem with that too, is because you're seeing these Democrats win these elections. I don't think the Republicans realize what's coming. I mean, you had what the Republicans are doing now. Your boy Mike Johnson did. I guess he was in Florida. I guess it was that getaway, that Trump thing, and he was saying it would be foolish to vote against the Republicans. That they don't see that
But
happening because it's like
that's desperation.
that's the thing to where you're shaming your audience. That's what a lot of when I grew up with ministers would do. They try to shame your audience, and hell, there was a preacher that told his congregation he wanted to bring their fucking tax returns because they weren't given enough. I mean, that's exactly what Mike Johnson's doing to the Repu I mean, Mike Johnson thinks the Republicans are as stupid as he is, and they bend over that much. They honestly think they are the majority in this country, and I don't think they know what's coming. Even Rand Paul said that today.
Yeah. Well, Mike Johnson's saying you'd be foolish to vote for anybody other than a Republican. If you vote Democrat, you'd be foolish. That is the best analogy I can get for that is having a boyfriend or a girlfriend and you're breaking up with them and they say, you'll never get anybody as good as me if you break up with me. You'll never find another boyfriend. You'll never find another girlfriend, which is always bullshit. Because I've heard that a couple of times and now I've been married for 42 years. So I'm good. That's a desperation move. That's a desperation move because they don't know what else to do. And it's all about trying to scare people. Unfortunately, by saying that, it just exposes their desperation and doesn't scare anybody. It just informs people of how bad off they are.
So if that Republic, that Harris wins that Georgia, where does that put the House at? Are we, because aren't they like one or two away from
Yeah. Well, then you've got this other guy in California that is,
he's dying though, isn't he? Or
no, no.
he's
This
dying.
is the guy that's was in the, he's stepping away from the Republican Party and he's going to be an independent. So I don't know if he's going to caucus with the Republicans or whatever. You got people quitting every day. Um, we could come to a point where the Republicans don't have enough for a majority at some point. And I don't know what that really means within Congress, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter whether they have the majority or not because of what Donald Trump said. You either pass that SAVE Act or I'm not going to sign another bill. I don't care what you put through. I'm not going to sign a bill, which is interesting because that would suggest that when they try to get the approval for Mark Wayne Mullen for head of the DHS, is he not going to sign that one too? He's not going to sign that. This is what Donald Trump, he makes extravagant fucking threats and he never follows through with them. He thinks people are going to bend and do what he wants. He's a spoiled fucking brat. If you don't do this, I'm going to hold my breath. If you don't do this, I'm going to stomp on the floor. That's the equivalent of what he does when he says these things. If you put those landmines in, I'm going to bomb you even worse than we have. And Iranians are going, go ahead, give us your best. I mean, we know you're running out of fucking defensive missiles, so go do it.
I read that thing about him saying that he's not going to pass anything, and I'm like, that's fine. Republicans run both houses. That's going to hurt them. But I don't. I also read too. Doesn't if he doesn't sign something after 10 days, doesn't it become law? Isn't there like some? I read that also that if he
I think
doesn't
there is something to that. Yeah.
on his desk and after 10 days, probably a question for Eric, but I don't know if that's him doing that. But I mean,
You could always veto it.
yeah, he can always veto it, but he yeah, this Save Act, it just tells you how desperate they are. I
Mm-hmm.
actually went yesterday to renew my driver's license in Texas, and just this tells you how stupid this law is. So I haven't registered. I haven't got my. I had to make an appointment because that's new. It's been probably about 8 years since I got it renewed because I did it online. So you have to go to the DPS. You have to make an appointment. I got there. I made an appointment for 7:30, thinking I'll be the first motherfucker in line. Bullshit. There were people
Yeah.
there already. And what you have to do is, I guess, with that little star that's on your on your driver's license, I guess now to fly or whatever, I had that already, but they needed a copy of my birth certificate. So they're already doing this shit with your birth certificate. You give them a copy of your birth certificate. I don't know if I think it's birth certificate or passport.
That's
They
for the real ID. That's for the real ID.
driver's license for my driver's license, like real ID. Yeah. So they're already doing this shit here. They're already passing this stuff to do it. So this Save Act is like you got to have what the two forms now. You got to have that, even though you've went through this shit at your DPS to get that stuff done.
Well, the
And
thing is that they'll say you have to have your original birth certificate. Because, if I walk into a state office right now or a county office, I say I don't have my birth certificate, they'll print you an official copy of, and which works with everything, including getting a passport. But they're saying your original birth certificate. Now, I had my original birth certificate until I was about 20 and it fell a fucking part. Nobody has their original. Well, I won't say nobody does, but most people don't.
and they also want you to have your passport too. And I was looking at because I have a passport expires in May, and I thought about getting it, and I was thinking, well, okay, well, I'll get the card. Well, you got to have the book to do international travel because
Right,
the card's only 30 bucks, but the other one's like 130.
right.
And it's like, and there's that thing that came out saying that there's more people that are like us, liberals, that have their passport than people do it. So go ahead and, that's going to hurt them. I mean, they're not going to have their passports. But it's ridiculous is because you've already gone through this shit with a copy of your birth certificate is just as good as the original
If it
because
comes from the county, yeah.
yeah, that's a county record or whatever, but that's how desperate they are. And what they don't realize is that they're hurting their own voters too. It's like when they throw away when they purge voter registrations, like down here in Texas, everybody's worried about that. It doesn't say what it doesn't I don't have what party I am on my voter registration. Yeah, they can, and that's why they wanted to kind of go after vote blue or what's the thing where you donate to Democrats. Well, there are a lot of Republicans vote to Democrats too. So, they're not only when they impeding the vote and they're hurting people like that, they're hurting their own voters as well. That's how
Yeah.
stupid. That's why it won't work.
Well, it's
And
like mail-in balloting.
yeah,
Mail-in balloting. More Republicans mail in their votes than Democrats. So in the wash, it benefits Democrats. They're so they're more concerned with creating this anger or this or hurting people. They're not even thinking about whether it's going to hurt their own people. I mean, Donald Trump's been oblivious to this stuff. Every time Donald Trump says something about mail-in ballots or birthright citizenship, he doesn't know anything about this. This is something that he was fed by Stephen Miller or some other fucker, and he just repeats it like a parrot because he thinks it sounds good or he was convinced that it means something. Everything Donald Trump has done since he's been in office, think about this. Everything he's done to hurt this country and hurt Democrats have ultimately hurt Republicans. Tariffs, we're going to do tariffs. Who does it hurt? The fucking farmers, who are largely Republican voters. Um, the deportation, it affects brown people. And we had Latina and Latino people voting for Donald Trump. He's sending away his own fucking voters. He's not even smart enough to figure out a way to actually only impact Democrats. Now, even with the SAVE Act, it's stupid. It's not going to help him. It's not going to pass. He went to John Thune and said, I need, you got to pass it. He said, look, I don't have the votes for passing the SAVE Act. It's just not going to happen. You got the filibuster. You need 10 Democrats to vote for it. It's not going to happen. So he says, get rid of the filibuster, which is absolutely stupid in the current position they're in. I'd be fine with them doing that for a short time, but John Thune says I don't have enough votes to even overturn the filibuster. And the reason it's stupid for turning over the filibuster is that in 8 9 months, the House and the Senate may be controlled by the Democrats, And that gives free reign for the Democrats to do whatever the fuck they want. This is why the Republicans don't want to get rid of the filibuster, but Donald Trump isn't thinking more than 2 feet in front of him. He doesn't care about that. He wants immediate gratification. He wants it his way now. And this is why Donald Trump always loses. This is why he's had 6 or 7 bankruptcies. This is why he always loses money. This is why he always loses negotiation. He wants immediate gratification and he doesn't think of down the road at all. And he always fucks himself over.
Well, he doesn't have to worry about that because probably if the Democrats take over the House, his life's fucked. If they take over the Senate, his presidency's gone.
Right.
So he's not worried about that because he's not thinking long term, and he could give two shits about the Republicans. I mean, I think he's already proven that he don't care. And I guess Thune has said he's going to go do a vote on it tomorrow. So they may have like what 52 or 53 votes because you can't trust Fetterman. Fetterman's probably going to vote with them, but they
Yeah.
don't have 60 to do it. And
Yeah.
you know, and it's like when we were seeing Susan Collins come out there and she was like 50th, and a lot of Democrats were like, "Oh, it's over, it's over." It's like there's a lot of misinformation out there that they're not that the Democrats are real bad about that, about them, you know, they're scaring their people. I don't know if it's on purpose for clicks or whatever, but they need to stop that shit too. And if you see this stuff, don't get scared, get more determined to go out and vote. Because I'm telling you right now, in Texas, you know, we can have all these barbecues and, you know, do all this stuff, but we're gonna have to show up in November like we did in, you know, freaking, you know, March. We're gonna have to, you know, in more than do that. And if they're doing, there's more of us than there are of them. The Republicans think it's still 1972 with Nixon. It ain't like that anymore because people actually got, you know, they got more access to stuff. And what a lot of it is that Republicans want to run on fear tactics. That's what Cornyn was doing. He was running on this Islamic law. They always make the brown guy the bad guy, you
Right.
know, stuff like that. And you know, of course, that may be a problem now. But who stirred that shit up? Trump. You know what I mean? His guy that and I think you're right. I don't think he's gonna. I think he's just gonna let them kiss his butt until there. But the stuff that's going on with this Save Act, I don't think it's Trump. I think it's Stephen Miller, like you said, because Trump he goes from one thing to another. I mean, what happened to Greenland? Weren't we going to get that last week? I mean, what happened with that? You
Or
know,
Venezuela. What are you doing with Venezuela? You
yeah, we got
kidnapped the
out our oil.
president.
Venezuela, we don't have to worry about gas prices. But when it starts hitting the stock market and corporations start losing money and his billionaire buddies, that's when he starts panicking. Not me and you being upset about it, but when the big dogs, their donors start getting upset, and he stepped in something and he ain't gonna be able to get out of this.
No, he's not going to be able to get out. He fucked up. I was thinking about this though, and this might sound like a crazy strategy for Donald Trump, and I've not heard anybody talk about this. So he goes into Iran, the oil prices go up. He's getting a lot of heat from big money people and the politicians because it's fucking killing him for upcoming elections. But think about this. Donald Trump went to Venezuela. And what was the upshot of that? What did he end up doing there?
Got a Nobel Peace Prize out of it.
He stole oil.
Oil.
He stole oil. What's he want to do in Iran? Don't listen to what he says. He wants oil.
Yep.
So oil prices are going up, and he wants to corner the market on oil. This is a dumb idea by Donald Trump. He thinks, well, if I get all the oil and the oil prices are high, then I control everything. Well, it won't work out that way because Donald Trump's a fucking idiot. But it wouldn't surprise me if that's in the back of his mind. I got this oil I'm stealing from Venezuela. They have these huge reserves. I get Iran and I get their oil. Then I control the oil of the world and I'm the leader of the world. That sounds crazy.
But it's
Not
crazy.
until you say that might be Donald Trump's idea. I don't know if it is, but one thing I know about narcissistic people, no matter what happens, they try to figure it out to somehow it it's beneficial to them. Even when they fuck up, they will say, "Well, yeah, I meant to do that because this is what happens. They always rationalize it out after the fact, even if they fucked up. And I wouldn't be surprised if somebody walked up to Donald Trump and said, "Listen, man, you got all this oil. Oil prices are going up. Just cool out. That's good. You're going to make more money." It's stupid. It won't work.
Well,
But Donald Trump is stupid.
there's two big roadblocks with that, and it's called Russia and China because they get most of their oil
Yeah,
from Iran. So
and that's the thing you would have. See, that's what you when you go into a war, you start a war. You like to think ahead. You think of who this is going to impact. And now that we're in this war, we understand that Russia is giving information to Iran. And where do you think Russia's getting that information?
Trump,
From the fucking White House. China's talking about helping Iran because they get oil from them. And by affecting the oil going to China, that's a security issue. So now you're fighting against Russia and Iran. You can't back out because you're in too fucking deep. And you're absolutely right. Over and above Epstein and all this other stuff, this may be the death knell for Donald Trump because there is no way out. And this is the ultimate death of a narcissist when they flailed and get into a position where there's no way out. So it's going to be interesting to see how he responds to it. He's going to cry and whine, but he's still fucked. You don't go kill a bunch of people, blow up a school full of 175 schoolgirls. That's going to come back to haunt him. That is an international crime. Bombing boats in the ocean is an international crime. Whether the DOJ ever gets them or not, we could see some international problems for Donald Trump.
and the thing about Republicans is they have a history of doing this. They slash all these taxes to where no money's coming in, and they have these fucking wars costing us $1 billion a day. And that's something that Trump always harped on Bush about that, and he actually said that shit against Jeb Bush about, another war and stuff. And he's done that. I mean, I didn't see Obama or Biden start a war. I saw them, escalate one and get out of one,
Yeah,
and but the Republicans, they're like the kids with the check, but daddy's checkbook, and when the bill comes due, it takes a Democrat to fucking clean it up. And you can laugh at all this stuff and you can laugh about how Joe Biden wasn't in his fucking mind. But I know one thing Biden didn't do. He didn't let Netanyahu drag him into a war. And
no,
it's probably because they didn't have anything on or Obama or Biden because they weren't in the Epstein files.
right.
You
Well,
still have,
and you can bet that Bibi Netanyahu wouldn't have been able to commit genocide if Obama or Biden were in office because they had reins pulled back on them. You do this, we cut you off completely. And that kept him in line. Donald Trump bends over for him, spreads his cheeks, and says, "Do whatever the fuck you want." Um, yeah, it's
but that's what gets me about that group that just, called Joe Biden Genocide Joe and all this shit like that. Netanyahu's going to do what he wants to do. I mean, what was Biden supposed to do? Snap his fingers and, put him in the corner? I mean, it's like
yeah,
Netanyahu did what he wants to. There's no check on them. But this Iran thing, I think it's a check. And I think that, and I feel bad for the people of Israel because I think, they're good people. And,
yeah,
even they didn't like Netanyahu and they probably didn't like the genocide that was going on. But it's just like, it's like anything to where Trump is that frat boy along with head frat boy Pete Hegseth, and Hegseth said that it's like, well, this ain't gonna be another Iraq, it ain't gonna be long term. Bullshit, dude. I think this war is, and it is a war, it ain't a skirmish, it's a war. And it's something that, it could bring America to its knees. I'm not a thing, but I mean, we got to worry about what's going on here too. And the thing in a lot of the stuff is looking what we did in '08 here. And if that crashes, at least in '08 we had a president and administration coming in that knew that how to fix this and how to get the markets going. They used to make fun of Obama for all this shit about what was it, cash for clunkers and putting all that money in there. I mean, I just wish we had a president half as good as Obama. But right now we got that Republican that's still in that, and I honestly, people are finally turning on Trump is because it's affecting them personally. They should have done that a long time ago, not just when it affects you. When you see how it's affecting other stuff, that's what should do it. But it's about the cruelty. It's about the cutting the aid for people. It's about, you're regulating how much sugar somebody that gets SNAP benefits can have. I mean, it's about the cruelty and it's about, owning the libs or whatever. But I mean, I think Trump stepped in this. I don't see an easy way out of this. And when he's already kind of backpedaling and saying, "Hey, whatever," but he's got to save face with his base, saying, "Oh, we're gonna." That's why Hegsworth came out today. Oh, we're gonna bomb more than ever. I think I think the people that are smart in the administration know what they stepped into, but of course, people like Stephen Miller that are just can't see beyond the hate. They don't know how fucked the Republicans are, and sadly, we're all in that car that Trump's driving.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, because of the way people voted and the fact that Republicans in Congress didn't do anything to hold him to account, we are going to head for a catastrophic crash. And unfortunately, many of us are going to be affected one way or another, some more so than others. And it's because of our ineffectiveness, our inactivity all the time this has been going on. This is the media, this is the Republicans, and to the Democrats to a certain extent. You fuck around with fire, you're going to get burned, and we're about to get burned. And hopefully, we can get through it and come out the other side. And hopefully, the dumb fucks learn a lesson, and we don't make this mistake again. I wouldn't count on it because they're not very bright people, but we just have to make sure that we um, act appropriately and handle the situation. People are worried about Donald Trump messing with the election and, oh boy, he's going to steal the election. I can give you an example how to fix that. 2020, the Russians messed with the election. The Republicans messed with the election, but Joe Biden won. And you know why Joe Biden won? Because he got 7 million more votes. People turn out and they vote. He could fuck around all he wants. It only is effective if it's a close race. If we get out and vote in mass and just bury the fucker, he can do all the things he wants. It's not going to help. So that, if there's one strategy for the Democrats at this point, everybody vote. And I'm glad to see Texas, we saw more Democrats come out, and that's unusual. You say Democrats don't vote in Texas typically, but they did in this particular race. Georgia had an unprecedented amount of people turning out for this race, especially Democrats. So it sounds like Democrats are motivated at this point, and they're ready to be done with this bullshit. And hopefully, there's the independents, which is the real tipping point. We know Donald Trump's approval with independents is about 19%. That's a problem for him, and that's going to help the Democrats. So we might be at that tipping point. It's so annoying to sit here and know what is probably coming, and we still got to sit here and eat shit until that point.
Yeah, it only took us facing possible extinction for the Democrats to get off their ass. What, abortion? No. Well, hey, we may be going into World War III. You know what? I guess I'll get out and vote. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, it's fucking sad because, and it's like Kamala, they didn't give her a chance. She was talking to those people that, about that, about what's going on in Gaza. She even said that, well, let me get in there and we'll work on it. I mean, they'll give Trump a pass when he says he has concept of a plan, but they held her to a higher accountability. And a lot of you people that are Democrats that, just thought you were too good to vote for her, well, how do you like them now?
Well, I
She
tell you what,
she's right
when
about
this is,
everything she fucking said.
yeah, and so was Hillary.
Yep.
Um, so when this is over, Republicans are out of power. Donald Trump is out of office. You can count on me going after some Democrats because we got problems there too. Not as many as Republicans. We'll be better with the Democrats in control, but we've got some Democrats that need to be sifted out of the fucking mix because there are people like the Cory Bookers and the Hakeem Jeffries and the Schumers who aren't necessarily our friends. They're using their rhetoric to fight against the Republicans because that's who they see their opposition being. But when it's over, this country will have learned some lessons, and the perspective is going to be different. Nobody trusts Congress, and that's not just Republicans; it's fucking all of them. So
And I would
once,
say, as a voter, I would say don't always believe what you hear from a Democratic source,
no,
because there's a lot of stuff that came out about Tallarico that wasn't true. And stuff. A lot of stuff came out about Jasmine Crockett that wasn't true. You got to realize Republicans are in their fucking they're fighting for their lives, so they're willing to start anything.
right,
So, do your research. I wouldn't listen to the mainstream media. I would listen to, of course, Rational Boomer, Midas Touch, Lincoln Project. But always keep
yeah.
in mind the Lincoln Project has an agenda. They are still conservatives, and most of them, and Republicans. So, wow, we're in this thing right now to get rid of Trump, but always use your own head, always think for yourself.
When this is all over, when this is all over and the bad Republicans are eradicated, understand Lincoln Project, um, Liz McCain, all these people that are fighting against Donald Trump with us, they are not our friends. They don't believe what you believe. They don't want what you want. Accept their help, but do not trust them and do not bring them in under your wing because they will fucking bite you in the ass almost every time.
Yeah, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, but always trust but verify. Or don't was it don't trust anybody but verify. And that includes what's coming from Democrats too, because I'm telling you, right after some of these elections, I already got these emails from all these Democrats wanting money. So it's like it's a business, a lot of it. So, but get for that one that you believe in, and Republicans don't show up. Trump's not on the ballot, so just stay home.
I, I got a DM from somebody who was calling me out because he said I was wrong, and I wasn't wrong. Uh, Mark Kelly was going to vote against um, or vote for Donald Trump to be able to continue to make choices and start wars and stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, he said he would vote along with Donald Trump. And we know why, because he gets a large chunk of money from APAC. He didn't end up voting for it. He was going to vote for it. He wanted to vote for it. The only reason he didn't vote for it is he got huge blowback. So
As
I don't give him a pass on that. I don't trust him. The only reason he did it, he thought it would affect his elections or maybe a run for presidency. At this point, I do not trust Mark Kelly because he made the first choice, the easy choice, the choice that made him money, and then he backed out of it when he got in trouble. That makes me question Mark Kelly.
I Yeah, I'm with you on that, because I mean I just don't understand is how people are okay with a country that gets health care, that gets, the abortion rights,
Commits
but
genocide.
giving it to them is not, because it's that same thing that Tucker Carlson, hate him as you want, but he asked Huckabee that good question. Is like, well, they get abortions. Well, we don't police what they get. If I'm giving money to you for something, you goddamn better police what they use it for. Because I've heard that from the right my whole life. Well, I don't want my taxpayers money going towards abortions.
We
You're
don't
telling me
police what they
Israel, that's
do, but
what's
we
happening.
cancel U.S. aid.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, they do police what people use their money for. And if they ever found some kind of liberal thing uh, was being used for their money, they would try to stop it. They have done it. They've done it. I mean, they try to police SNAP and Medicaid and all that. That's a bullshit answer. That's fucking ridiculous. That's
We
not true.
can't afford health care for all, but we can afford $1 billion a day for a war that's not going to get us nowhere.
One last thing I'm going to mention, they always complained about how much money we were giving to Ukraine to fight against Russia to stop them from spreading trying to get back the USSR. You know how much we spent on Ukraine? We would spend $5 billion a month
Mm.
on Ukraine. It's a lot of money. I'll grant you that. But now, by attacking another country that we had no quarrel with at the moment, they didn't have an imminent nuclear weapon. We are now spending 30 billion a month, $1 billion a day, every day, yesterday, today, tomorrow, the next day, a billion. You people that were worried about $5 billion a month for Ukraine, which was something we promised them we would do. We cut a deal with them, with Russia, to protect them if they gave up their nukes back when Russia split up. We promised them, we committed to doing it. And we were spending $5 billion because that was the commitment we made to push back against somebody coming after them, that being Russia. You had a problem with that, but now spending $30 billion a month, you don't care. Either you need to learn fucking math or get your head on straight, because that's fucked up.
It's the same people that bitched about egg prices but are okay with gas prices.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right, Jace, I'm going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. Thank you for coming on. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and get some insights from the Southwest.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
It's a chance where we can talk to the red state of Texas from the confines here in the blue woke state of Minnesota. You would think
Send
we
some
wouldn't
water.
get along.
Send some water.
We got 10,000 motherfucking lakes.
Exactly. We just need to get that pipeline down here, man.
Yeah, I would say this: if Greg Abbott called about water, I would say same thing that Walls would say: suck it.
Yep.
So anyway, all right. For those of you listening, thanks for taking the time. I hope you have a great day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.